Here is an example from chapter 18, where here we're looking at a profit maximization and, in a sense, graphing out the demand and the wage for the worker. So here's the information we have. Consider Strawberry Shortcake. Now seriously, consider her. A small player in the strawberry business whose production has no individual effect on wages and prices. So in a sense, we're trying to say here is she's in a competitive market. Strawberry Shortcake's production schedule for strawberries is given in the following table. So we have number of workers and her output. And now the first question we want to ask is, suppose that the market wage for strawberry pickers is $118 per week and the price of strawberries is $16 per pound. How many workers should the firm hire? All right, well, we can take this information and we can then add to it the additional columns that allow us to both graph it out and solve for the optimal answer. So I'm going to add 2 additional columns to this graph real quick. These may or may not look straight. Okay. Boom, boom. Now you're seeing my table making skills and you realize, wow, not only can he teach, but he can draw tables. All right, or probably not. All right, so this first one, we're going to call this marginal product of labor. How much does each additional worker create? Now, one thing to note is that the book is going to do this slightly different. The book is going to have these offset. So the marginal product of this first one would be not there, but it's going to be offset. So 0 to 1, that box would be halfway in between those 2 boxes there. I'm not going to do it that way for several reasons. But so hopefully you can see that difference and it won't confuse you too much. But when you're answering aptly, it's going to show that it's going to be halfway there. So we hire that first worker. That first worker took us from 0 to 10. So the marginal product of labor from that first worker is 10. As we hire the next worker, we now go from 10 to 19. So that next worker provides us 9. We go 19 to 27. That would be a difference of 8. We go 27 to 34. That would be a difference of 7. And 34 to 60 would be the difference of 6. And now that we have that, we can now turn to the next column, which is the value marginal product of labor. This is how much value is brought. So having no workers doesn't bring us any value. But now we look at it, is the price of strawberries is 16. And this is helpful because the value marginal product of labor is equal to marginal revenue times marginal product of labor. We just found the marginal product of labor, and marginal revenue in a competitive market is just the price. So we're just going to calculate the marginal product times 16. So this first one is going to be 160. Next will be 9 times 16, which is about 144. Then we'll do 8 times 16, which is 128. And then we'll do 7 times 16, which is 112. And we'll do 6 times 16, which is 96. And there we have our value of marginal product of labor. And so we can graph this out. So when we hire 1 worker, our value marginal product of labor is going to be 160. When we hire 2 workers, it's going to be 144. 3 workers, it'll be 128. 4 workers, it's going to be 112. And 5 workers is going to be 96. And now I connect these dots. Ideally, these would all fit on a straight line. They kind of do, but not really, so we'll do the best we can to connect the dots. There we go. And so this is our demand equation. And that's our demand for workers. Well, let's look to see now what the wage of workers are. Well, the wage is 118. So I go to 118. I'll make this a dashed line. So wage is equal to 118. So the wage is the cost to hire an additional worker. So think of that as our supply curve or our cost curve. And here's our demand curve, or the value marginal product, the demand or the benefit we receive. And so right here is going to be the optimal amount. Meaning that we want to hire in between 3 and 4 workers. But since we can't hire a half a worker, the optimal answer is going to be 3. And because at 3 workers, the value that worker provides is $128 worth of value. That 4th worker provides $112 worth of value, but that does not exceed the cost of that worker. Now let's go to the next. Let's suppose that the price of strawberries decreases to $12. Okay, so this is now slightly different. So I'm going to graph this out right here to the right. Let's see, keep it straight for you. Okay, so here's my new value marginal product of labor. So now it's going to be $12. So now the first one is 12 times 10, which is 120. The next one now is going to be 9 times 12, which is 108. I'm just taking the marginal product and multiplying it by this here is the marginal revenue, which is equal to the price. So I get 8 times 12, which is 96. I get 7 times 12, which is 84. 6 times 12, which is 72. And now I can graph that out. So the first worker brings in $120 worth of benefit. The next worker brings in $108 worth of benefit. The third worker brings in $96 worth of benefit. The fourth worker brings in $84 worth of benefit. 96 should probably be up here. 84 is down there, and then 72 just somewhere around here. And so to draw this next demand curve out, now this ideally should be a straight line, so we'll kind of do that and then just make our circles a little bigger so that it looks like we're on our circle. There we go. Here's the new demand equation. And now the question is, well, here's going to be our optimal amount. So we want to hire slightly more than one workers, and since we can't, the best we can hire would be one worker. Because one worker provides a benefit of 120 but only costs us 118. If we hire that next worker, 108, the benefit doesn't exceed the cost. Now suppose we're in this scenario where the price is 12. Suppose the wage decreases to $100 due to a market demand, due to a decreased demand for workers in this market. Well, that then takes us to $100. So here's where wage is equal to 100. So in that case, we're going to increase our workers up to about this point, meaning that now we're going to hire an additional worker because now that second worker provides us benefits greater than the cost, but that third worker does not. And so that's how we can go through different examples of number of workers, calculate and their output, calculate the marginal product of labor, and then calculate the value of marginal product, graph it out, and then answer the questions of how many workers they should hire based on the market wage.